Hello, everybody. I am so excited to have you join me today because we are going to talk about something that has become really close to my heart. I have been thinking a lot this year about sustainable aquaculture and, more importantly, regenerative aquaculture. The idea of different types of seaweed and obviously all different types of regenerative aquaculture that really help create a more sustainable ocean. And joining me today is going to be Lisa Scali from Ocean's Balance. Now, I have been having so much fun with her different types of seaweed, the flakes, all of the sprinkles, everything that you can imagine that create all of this deliciousness and flavor and umami. And not only that, but also nutrition. I mean, the incredible nutritive components of seaweed. And so what I did was I didn't just sort of do a deep dive and unbox these beautiful products and, play with them. What I really did was I started to take a look at my pantry, all of the old recipes that I've written, and really start to kind of update them in a way that was going to be interesting and be really more inclusive of some of these amazing ingredients from the sea. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk to Lisa. We're going to really take a deep dive into this exploration of what seaweed means to all of us, what it can mean to the planet. Some of you may or may not know, but this is an incredibly nutritive component. It creates regeneration of ocean systems, in some cases filtrating more than 50% of the water so that we're purifying as we're growing something. And then the other thing that we're going to talk about is about how we can maybe start to inspire some of these aquaculture systems, meaning finfish or shellfish, to become what we call multi-tropic systems, so that these systems can actually be cleaning and providing even more of a broader base for our food system. It's such an amazing opportunity. And there's Lisa joining me from Ocean's Balance, one of the co-founders. And yay, there you are. I have everything in front of me. Lisa, how are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you, Jen. Thanks for
I
having me today.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I mean, I think that we call the, fast friends for life, because it was one conversation that we had and I was just like, I'm hooked. And I shared with you how I really do believe that, like, when they say when you like point at the fence and swing the ball, you can find that home run. And at the beginning of the year, I said, I want to learn and be more engaged in regenerative aquaculture, specifically in seaweed, for lots of reasons. I mean, it's obviously a taste and a flavor that I have loved, but I haven't really looked at it in terms of the ingredients that I was using.
Right.
And so, I mean, I played with this all weekend long and I was so excited.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to everyone first and foremost about, you're in Maine, about your background, because I loved that you kind of came at this from a foodie background. And then before we dive into Ocean's Balance, I want to talk about a little bit about the history of seaweed in your region. So tell us a little bit about you and how you came to creating more balance for us in the ocean.
Well, I'd say it started from a very young age, just being surrounded by a family that loved food. I grew up in an Italian family. My mom is first generation American. Her parents were from Sicily. My father's parents are second generation. So Italian food was really the glue that bound us all together. And my daughter makes fun of me. She says, Mom, we sit down for a meal and no sooner are we starting to eat and you're already talking about what you're going to cook at the next meal.
I love it.
That's all we talk about is food. So it had a profound impact on me, and it really kind of guided me as I grew older. And my next kind of experience with food, I have like the Italian, that's part of me really.
Yes.
Was when I was sent to France for part of a job that I was doing. And I lived in Paris actually for 5 years. And there I was just presented with this whole new cuisine, French cuisine, which as we all know is delicious. And I was working for a bank at the time, and I was known as the lady to call if you needed a restaurant recommendation. And
Actually, I get that all the time.
yeah,
So again, fast soulmates.
yes, exactly. So, my love for food grew that much deeper. Then when I came back to the United States, I met my husband who was living in Maine. I decided to move here, and I realized as soon as I got here that there's just a tremendous food scene here.
Mm-hmm.
Portland just has an incredible number of restaurants. We have such talent. And what
Mm-hmm.
I love about the people who work in food here is that they really embrace the local.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very seasonal, using exactly what is there and what should be eaten at the moment. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, seafood and seaweed plays a big part of that. So
Yes.
I realized I wanted to get involved in this food scene too, and it just was kind of like, the perfect circle. And with another friend who was our partner and a third, we founded Ocean's Balance. And our mission
Amazing.
really is to, create food that people can feel good about eating.
Right.
Yeah. So feel good about the food you eat is one of our taglines. And we really wanted to demystify seaweed, because
Mm-hmm.
seaweed is very often thought of as that thing you eat at a sushi bar, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
it can be
Just the
so
thing
much
that
more
wraps
than
and
that.
holds the sushi together, basically.
Exactly. It was, I think, thought of as a very exotic ingredient. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is, well, it grows naturally here in the Gulf of Maine, here in the North Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the seaweeds that you find here in the Gulf of Maine, you'll also find on the other side of the Atlantic, in Ireland and England and France. And they've all
Mm.
eaten seaweed for hundreds of years. And it's very much a part of their diet. And in the Canadian Maritimes, seaweed is also very, very common, very
Mm-hmm.
popular, and eaten very often.
So
So,
let's talk about that, because I always find it interesting as part of kind of our food history, right? That people went out and foraged and were willing just to sort of try what was out there. Now you think about that for a second, particularly when it comes to certain ingredients, how brave you had to be, because you had to have gotten sick at
mhm,
sometimes, and sometimes it kind of all worked out. And so the history of seaweed, I mean, we have been eating and cooking with seaweed for thousands of years.
we have. We really have. If you look at Hawaii, I think they've been cooking literally with it for like 3, 4, 5,000 years. It's very much native to that part of the world. And then here, you look at the most basic of recipes. I think this is one that you might want to talk about later.
Yes.
But
I have it here as a surprise. I'm ready to go.
so people used seaweed and continue to use it as a source of salt, and
Uh-huh.
people cook with it very often to increase their iodine intake. And
Uh-huh.
I can kind of go into that a little bit. Seaweed is
Yeah.
it's a very nutritious plant, right? It's the most nutrient dense plant on the planet. And it's most well known for its iodine content. It's naturally
Uh-huh.
occurring iodine. Iodine is something that we all used to get when we ate iodized sea salt, iodized salt, but
Uh-huh.
not many
Right.
people eat iodized table salt anymore. We all eat nice fancy sea salts, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not iodized. So
Mm-hmm.
we're in need of iodine, and when we're deficient, our thyroid doesn't function properly. And if
Right.
thyroid doesn't function properly, then you feel sluggish. You're not able to digest your food as much. Your energy,
Mm-hmm.
you're just kind of off. And
Right.
a lot of people are iodine deficient and they don't really even know it. For people who do and they're looking for iodine, seaweed is a natural source and
Mm.
people will look for it often. But on top of that, it also has it has all of the basically vitamins and minerals that you need to be healthy. We like to call it Mother Nature's multivitamin.
I
It has,
love that when you said that before. Mother
yeah,
Nature's multivitamin, because I'm not much of a multivitamin fan. I would rather, as my friend and registered dietitian nutritionist Masha Davis says, we should be eating our vitamins.
that's right. She's absolutely right. And when you have seaweed, you're getting both of the vitamin B's, lots of potassium, iron, calcium. In fact, calcium is really important, obviously, for women, and it's a strong way to get it if you eat either kombu or wakame, which are two strains of seaweed that we work with.
I was thinking, did I have that one? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you
Ta-da.
do. Yeah, you do.
I have a lot of show and tell.
Yeah, you do. Oh, That was great when you opened up the box. I loved watching it.
I was stoked. Could you tell? I've used so much of it already.
Have you? Great.
but
And
but
just
I
to
think,
finish up with the
yeah,
nutritional, so it also has a lot of omega-3s and
right.
antioxidants. So it's really just the most perfect thing that you can eat to help keep you healthy. And I know a lot of people are concerned about being healthy right now and keeping their immunity up.
Right.
Seaweed is a great way to do that.
So I had a question about because you have so many different products in the product line from from these sprinkles, which are just a great way to be able to add layers of flavor and umami, kind of that little flourish on the top of things that I think is really great. And I loved that you also you combined it with other ingredients because, like in the case of the spicy seaweed sprinkle, it really could be a replacement for kind of that rub or something that I was
Oh,
doing,
yeah.
like even if I wasn't doing vegan or vegetarian, I could put it on different types of protein, fish, all of that. Um, but I'm curious about how much do you need to use to get those, like a significant boost of those nutritive properties. So like in some of the new recipes, I'm going to show in the coming weeks, I used quite a bit to build tacos and things like that, that again, were like a balance of building a pantry, but we got a little bit more in. But if I'm just sprinkling it over for a crispiness on the top of a salad, how much do I really need to be thinking about having in order to be able to get those nutritive properties?
So I'm not a doctor, and everybody does have to be concerned about their own metabolism and how things work within their own body. I do know that, for example, the kelp puree, which is
Yep,
really
I used it all.
did you? That's awesome.
I don't have it.
Oh well, so here we go. The kelp puree, which is the product that we really launched the company with, and it's a very simple but pretty ingenious product. It's seaweed that's blended with water and a little bit of lemon juice.
Genius.
To keep it stable. It's a shelf-stable product. Once you open it, then you do refrigerate it.
Mm-hmm.
It's an ingredient, and it's an ingredient that you can add to your cooking to pump up the umami,
Mm-hmm.
add a little bit of salt, and then get all those vitamins and minerals. And if you're taking like a tablespoon of this a day,
Mm-hmm.
you're getting a good amount of the nutrients that you want to have.
That is so great. And I want everybody to know about this because I don't want to give too much away in the recipes that you encouraged me to make over the weekend. And we don't want to give all of that away for later. But I loved this because I was thinking about things like guacamole and
Yep.
hummus and all of these things where I don't want to say you can kind of sneak the vitamins in, but it's very neutral in
Right.
that state, I felt.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
And it's just it's so easy. You open up the jar and you spoon it into what you're cooking.
Yep.
And for people who don't want to be bothered with rehydrating, defrosting, all of that kind of stuff, this is what you need. You just literally stir it into whatever you're cooking.
Well, and I noticed it's and I don't know if he's still on, but Jamie Proviance, who writes the cookbooks for Weber Grill and does a lot of grilling, and I actually thought about him because I thought this is such an amazing thing to add to things like his chimichurri, where you're already getting all of those kind of green flavors anyway. So if we really start to think about that as a layer of flavor in our pantry, that's always there on hand, that's what you've created for us with that puree.
That's what we're trying to do. Yep.
I know. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So what other things? I found it particularly interesting when you were telling me the story of the Native Americans that lived in Maine and the kinds of recipes that they used to make in order to be able to season and flavor and have this as a nutritive property in their cooking.
Well, I think one that's pretty popular is beans. Beans that are cooked with often dulse, and for two reasons. Dulse has often been called the bacon of the sea. It has a really nice, meaty, smoky flavor.
Yep.
So if you cook with it, you can use it as a meat replacement, use it as your bacon replacement.
I'm going to show it.
Look at that.
Wait for it. I got to figure out how to do the camera here and get it over.
Oh, they look good. Oh,
they're looking good. Keep talking.
Yep.
We'll stir a little bit.
You can use that to replace your bacon, and then you're also going to use it for the salt. And then the umami that it brings. And umami really is, sometimes you could say, oh, it's an overused word. It's not an overused word. It is
No, it gives you that meatiness and
it
flavor
does. It
for
does.
foods, right?
It brings out the flavor of food. And that's exactly what seaweed does. And it's exactly what the seaweed that you put into those beans is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Oh
those were
my
so
gosh.
good.
They were, oh, it's so good. Well, I mean, it's an effort to make those beans,
Yep.
but you had told me that they will cook it in, take that seaweed, take the dulse, cook it in there. And what I did was I soaked the beans. So I had cranberry beans and marcella beans and midnight blacks that all come from this amazing bean producer in the Bay Area called Rancho Gordo. And what I did was I soaked those overnight. Actually, I used the kombu in the soaking water, then
Perfect.
pulled it out, re-added cold, rinsed it off, re-added some fresh cold water, and then used ginger and dried mustard and molasses. And I heard also that they used kombu and other seaweeds in combination with maple syrup to do their cooking because it was such a native ingredient there in Maine. So I have some maple syrup in here, and then I cooked it for about 8 hours.
Oh, they must be so
Oh my
good.
gosh, they're so good. And everybody, you should all know, I wrote the recipe, I've got the pictures in the video, and we're going to post it right after we talk to Lisa so everybody can order the seaweed and be able to order the
Yum.
beans from Rancho Gordo and be able to make it. So I loved it in how it like layered up the flavor of the bean. So I had this bacon, almost chocolate-like quality, if I'm
Right.
like cocoa, not so much, but like a dried cocoa quality to the dulse, I felt.
Yeah. Oh, totally. You're exactly right. Dulse is such an incredible, of all the seaweeds that we work with, dulse just it is so nuanced and it just has so many different levels of flavor. It's the kind of seaweed that you can eat out of the bag, which I do
Yep.
all the time.
Well, look at how pretty it is
Yeah, it's
too.
beautiful. It is beautiful.
It's that, I mean, it's got that sort of almost endive color to it.
Yep. Yep. And along the lines of the meat replacement, you know, I was thinking after we spoke, there were a couple of other things I wanted to tell you that we can do specifically with dulse. And I love to make, as this is the Italian in me, melon with prosciutto, right? That's a great summer dish.
Oh, you have this on your website.
Melon with dulse is out of this world. You've got the sweetness of the melon and then the salty meatiness of the dulse, delicious. Or you can even just wrap a little bit of dulse around a grape. It reminds me of, you know, bacon wrapped figs.
Yeah, or the asparagus.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, now what I thought was interesting, and did I miss this? When you had your recipe, did you soak it first, or was that one that you actually used when it was dried? It was hard to tell on the melon.
On the melon, no, I didn't soak it first.
I didn't think so. You just laid it over the top.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, you know, the juice from the melon is going to
just softens it a little bit.
And then it takes up all the salt and the meatiness. Oh, so good.
It really is. And I want to make sure that for all of you that are joining me, I'm talking to Lisa about Ocean's Balance. And really we're talking about truly just seaweed in general and this important place that it can have for us in our everyday cooking, which is really the point. And one of the things I think that was so interesting about the dulse was that it could be like I talked about it like as a sprinkle, like bacon bits on a salad with the flaked one that you got, that there really are these incredible properties. Now, is it like salt, where depending on the region of the world where you are and what seaweed you're eating, you're going to get different components of it because the water, you know, that miroir and the flavor of the water, or are they very similar?
No, there are different seaweeds in different parts of the world. So what we work with in the Gulf of Maine is not the same seaweed that you're going to find down in Florida or in the Caribbean, for example. Very different. The waters are different, so the plants are different. And that makes sense, right? We don't have the same fruits in the north that we have in the south. But what makes the Gulf of Maine seaweeds, I think, so special is the Gulf of Maine itself. It's a very it's a deep body of water. It's very cold. It has a lot of natural currents, which means that nutrients are swimming around there all the time. It's like very nutrient rich, nutrient dense, ideal growing environment for things like seaweed. And it's, you know, it's a gulf, so it's kind of protected a bit from the Atlantic Ocean. And it's far away from anything that could really bother it. You know, we like to talk about the fact that the waters of the Gulf of Maine are pristine, as is Maine, but the
Yes.
waters really are. They are so, so clean. And when we think about seaweeds that are often consumed by Americans, they're often imported. In fact,
Right.
95% of the seaweed that Americans eat right now is imported.
Say that again, because I want to make sure everybody hears you.
Yeah.
It's shocking, actually,
Yeah.
given all of the beautiful seaweed that we have that's wild, that's harvested off of the Pacific coast, and of course, what you're farming there.
Yeah, 95% is imported that we eat right now. And that's just, you know, that's a huge global footprint. Huge.
Yes.
And it's, you know, the Pacific Ocean has some issues. They are definitely struggling with the fallout still from Fukushima, and that water really can't be compared to the Gulf of Maine. So
Right.
when we say the clean taste of Maine, we're not kidding. It's
Yeah,
really clean water.
exactly. Oh my gosh. And the fact that we could be creating more economy, helping regenerate these fishers, you know, livelihoods that have had really fished out their fisheries. We can have more farms that are really contributive. And I want to talk about that for a little bit, because this is one of the other benefits. So I know that it's good for me, and we hear that phrase, good for you, good for the planet. What does that mean when we talk about the planet? We've got the good for you out. We know it's delicious. I got my beans here ready to have for dinner. But what is good for the planet about seaweed?
Yep. So seaweed is really the poster child for sustainability. When you think about how it grows, these are kind of obvious, but it's important. Seaweed doesn't use arable land. It doesn't need fresh water.
Right.
And it doesn't need fertilizer to grow. So
Yes.
it naturally grows in the water. It's not harming the planet in any way. And in fact, the way it grows, it's absorbing nutrients from the water. It
Yes.
naturally sequesters carbon. And by sequestering carbon, it helps to reduce ocean acidification, which thereby allows shellfish to grow much stronger and healthier. So this is why you see in Maine, a lot of seaweed farms are actually also shellfish farms.
Right.
There's seaweed growing right next to or above or
Yes.
below the shellfish. So you've got super clean water, and you've got really beautiful shellfish, beautiful mussels, beautiful oysters, and there's a beautiful symbiotic relationship there. And then in terms of sustainability of the planet, well, we've talked about it. You know, it keeps the water clean, but then there's also the sustainability of community ocean waterfront proper. Sorry, I'm looking for my words here. The sustainability of working waterfront communities. And becoming a seaweed farmer is a natural fit for a fisherman, because they're using the same gear, their boat and their buoys, and growing seaweed is countercyclical to the typical fishing season. So it's a beautiful way
See, I would
to
not have thought of
diversify
that.
their
So they
income.
can do both.
Seaweed grows in the winter. You usually put it in the water mid-fall, and it comes out end of April, beginning of May.
And I want to make sure that everybody understands this, because there's been a lot of conversation about regenerative aquaculture, what the contributions can be both with shellfish and with seaweed. And so that everyone understands, I mean, if we were farming more seaweed, we would actually make more of an impact than if we were to stop driving cars, if we were to plant more trees, more of an impact, because the oceans, what has happened is the oceans have been sequestering carbon to keep global temperatures down for years and years and years since industrialization. So we want to make sure that everyone understands that the oceans are tapped out. It can't keep absorbing that, and that's why we're getting global warming now. So if we were to invest in these types of seaweed farms, we get two benefits. The benefits really are twofold. We're going to get something that's incredible, that's going to be contributive to the food system and the economy, and we're going to get something that's going to be able to help in the need for carbon sequestration. So it almost just seems like a no-brainer, and it's not a particularly expensive endeavor to get into, right? It's something that if there is that bandwidth, or foundations, which we're starting to see, family foundations and others invest in this, there's tremendous impact that can come from it.
That's right. That's right. And you're right. It doesn't take a lot. I mean, you need a boat and some buoys and a line, and you're ready to go. And one of the things that we do when we're not making yummy products like this, we also have a nursery where we grow the seaweed spat, if you want to call it that, that farmers use to start their farms. So, yeah, we're just trying to make sure that everything's there to enable this industry to grow as much as possible.
Well, in my mind, it's all part of the layers that we have to be doing. A solution is not going to be one dimensional.
Right.
It's going to be the sum of all of the parts. It's going to be how we use our land, how we use our seas in order to feed a growing population. And this is such a great way, you know, when we think about African communities that need to be able to build economies, there are a number of areas where we can be teaching these things so they can be growing their native seaweeds, growing their native fish, and then imagine the impact that this can have because they already have a taste for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we could talk really quickly about the thing I mentioned the other day, the benefits that feeding seaweed to cows has.
Yes,
Yes.
that's a good one. That's a good factoid to end on because this is going to blow everybody's mind.
And, you know, it goes back to your bean recipe, right? Beans are often made with seaweed, as we said, and a lot of times people are adding them because it helps to reduce the effects that beans have on the human body. So we all know what beans can do to our body, right, when we eat a lot of them. So the cow, if you feed a little bit of seaweed to a cow, you're going to help reduce that cow's methane emissions. And there are studies that are going on right now. We're working with research institutions about this. Putting a little bit of seaweed into the feed of a cow will help them to reduce their methane emissions, and that will help thereby to reduce global warming. So
I mean, this is amazing. And the idea that, again, these contributive properties keep being this gift to us from the sea. And you, my friend, are a gift. You're a badass woman in this realm of aquaculture, in this fishy business that I love so much. I appreciate you joining me. I can't wait to share the recipe. So look for that. We're going to get that popped up and show some photos of that. And I hope that you'll join me again because this is just always a conversation with you is like filling the joy tank. I really appreciate you being with me, and we'll definitely continue. Thanks everyone for joining us. Look for it. We'll post it up onto IG stories, and we'll see everybody soon.
Thanks a lot, Jen.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.